I feel like this summer was kind of backwards from most summers. First of all, no one's outside and enjoying the weather because everything's on fire. Second of all, it's been like 2 weeks of straight thunderstorms where I live. And third of all, there were actually some good summer gaming showcases this year.
What a twist!
I'm recording this on June 13th after the extended Xbox showcase kind of wrapped everything up with a nice little bow, but it seems like the showcase announcement season for gaming has closed, and I'm going to do the stereotypical YouTuber thing and make a ranking list. There were quite a few big showcases this season, mainly because E3 has completely imploded and no longer exists. Frankly, I'm okay with that. But for this list, I'm going to be looking at the main 5 big showcases, or at least what I think were the main 5 showcases, those being PlayStation, Xbox, Ubisoft, Capcom, and the Summer Games Fest presentation. I know there were other showcases like the Guerrilla Collective and Wholesome Direct.
Ooh, cool.
But for the sake of this video, I'm just focusing in on the big 5. Again, PlayStation, Xbox, Capcom, Ubisoft, and the Jeff Keighley Summer Surprise Show. So pop your popcorn and drink your G Fuel because we're getting into the number 5. So in dead last, surprising absolutely no one, is that god-awful PlayStation showcase. I really don't know why they did this. What was hyped up as a big first-party showcase ended up being a few minutes of first-party gameplay from exactly one first-party game, and also Sony announced some headphones. Which, like, cool. There was literally nothing at this showcase that couldn't have been at other showcases, especially since the only first-party Sony game that was shown off also had a presence at the Jeff Keighley Summer Surprise Show. So literally, what was the point of this entire showcase? But there is a theory, and I actually buy into this theory. Because remember, this showcase was leaked by insiders like a few weeks ahead of time. There were a couple gaming insiders. I know people have mixed opinions on gaming insiders and whatnot, but the insiders correctly leaked the date, they correctly leaked the time, but they were completely wrong about the actual contents of the showcase, which leads to the theory that this showcase was actually originally going to be much more first-party focused, but then something was shitty in the state of Sony and they had to change course. Because think about it, if Sony was thinking about doing a whole bunch of first-party games, showing off a whole bunch of first-party stuff, but then we heard that Naughty Dog was completely unprepared to show anything, do you really think Sony would want to go forward with a first-party showcase without their arguably their most popular studio and their most focused on studio? Basically, if Sony was planning on a big first party showcase doing all their first party studios, but then Naughty Dog had nothing to show for themselves, they would have to restructure the entire event around that, and at that point, what's the point of doing a first-party showcase? So once it became clear that a first-party PlayStation showcase was kind of out of the question, Sony then called in all their third-party buddies to basically just make it a trailer fest of third-party games, and then close the show with Spider-Man 2, which was, which obviously they were going to show because it's their only big first-party game coming out this year, so they had to show something for Spider-Man 2, regardless of what other first-party presence is going to be there. I really think that is what happened too, because during this showcase, they kept doing like the dramatic like big X square triangle circle like transition slides in between third-party games that Sony had nothing to do with. It was just really, really weird, and it seemed like the overlays and transitions were completely out of sync with what was being shown. So frankly, I completely buy into the theory that this showcase was going to be first-party focused, and then everything had to be restructured once it became clear that Naughty Dog was not going to be prepared for this. And that's not me shitting on Naughty Dog. Shit happens. It's AAA development. Shit happens. You're not always prepared on time. But yes, the PlayStation showcase was fucking pointless. It deserved all the flack that it got. The only interesting thing that was shown off there was Spider-Man 2, and frankly, I'll be more excited for Spider-Man 2 once we see raw gameplay, not painfully scripted gameplay where the enemies aren't even attacking half the time. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm just so sick of gameplay footage, gameplay showcases where the gameplay is so utterly unrepresentative of what the game is actually going to be like once you get your hands on it. That being said, I'm still excited to see Spider-Man 2. I'm still excited for Spider-Man 2, and assuming it's a good game, I'll happily buy it once you guys are done beta testing it for us. But yes, the PlayStation showcase was garbage. It was incredibly boring, and I really don't think it's unfair to say we expect so much more of a publisher like Sony when they decide to have their own dedicated showcase. This was bad. They should have just canceled it. They should have just canceled it and waited until they had more first-party content to show, because really, what was the point of any of this? All of those trailers could have just been in other conferences during the Summer Games Fest. Number 4, I put Capcom here, and before anyone says anything, I don't think that's because Capcom's a shitty company, or even that I think the showcase was that bad. It just wasn't really the kind of shit that I'm into. Dragon's Dogma looks pretty cool. The next Ace Attorney trilogy thing looks cool. I also may check out Mega Man X Dive offline because I have a weird soft spot for classic Mega Man games. But you gotta cut Capcom some slack here, because it's not like they haven't been crushing it the last like 3-4 years, And even this year they've been crushing it. They crushed it with Street Fighter 6, they crushed it with RE4.
Would you like to know what I did at my job all day today?
Don't say crushed it.
I'm gonna go with crushed it. Funny enough, I crushed it. I crushed it all day today, and then I crushed it some more, and then it asked me what I was doing, and I told it that I was crushing it. That's what I do on a daily basis.
Capcom has been releasing tremendous games, and 2 of the best reviewed games of the year are theirs. So, you can cut them some slack for not having another big major Street Fighter or Resident Evil game ready to show just yet, when they literally released a Resident Evil game and a Street Fighter game within the last 6 months. So, Capcom Showcase at number 4. At the end of the day, it probably had an equal amount of hype as the PlayStation Showcase, but my expectations also weren't nearly as high as the PlayStation Showcase, so I'm putting it slightly higher. And I wish Capcom the best of luck as they continue to completely dominate this industry. So Ubisoft has been in the shitter the last few years, and I think that's actually doing good things for them because they had a pretty good showing. Assassin's Creed Mirage looks pretty interesting, actually. It looks like a nice blend of old and new Assassin's Creed mechanics, and as someone who hasn't really cared about Assassin's Creed since the 360 days, or maybe the early Xbox One days, I just super stopped caring during the RPG era. My eyebrows are firmly raised at Assassin's Creed Mirage. It looks pretty decent. Now, I'm certainly a little concerned about how much Assassin's Creed is going to be spammed at us over the next few years, and really, whenever you see any franchise or any publisher start to market a fucking hub for their franchise games, like this Assassin's Creed Infinity thing, I'm just automatically on my toes as to what nonsense is going to come with it. Because the mere existence of a hub like that means constant content, and constant content from Ubisoft means constant mistakes, if we're going off of established history. But Assassin's Creed Mirage, I'll admit, it looks solid, and I do appreciate the self-awareness of not releasing this game for $70. Thank you, Ubisoft. Very cool. Doesn't excuse all the nonsense you've been pulling over the last few years, but I appreciate you at least starting to turn the wheel a little bit and get back in the carpool lane. Skull and Bones, I am honestly not sure if it's even possible for me to express accurately how low my expectations are. And Ubisoft's absolute refusal to put a release date on this thing is just funny at this point. As long as the game doesn't literally catch on fire when you boot it up, it's exceeding my expectations. But at least they're acknowledging that the game still exists, and they seem at least a little more confident in it, I guess. Same thing with Frontiers of Pandora, but to a lesser degree, at least they seem a little more confident in it, but I also could not give a shit less about the Avatar IP, so I'll leave that one for other people. My big hype with Ubisoft right now is the new Prince of Persia game. That game looks fucking sick. One of the first video games I ever got into as a wee little lad was the original 2D Prince of Persia. I used to play that game with my dad. So I am absolutely here for another 2D Prince of Persia, and it legitimately looks awesome. But overall, I think a good showing from Ubisoft. I think they're on the right foot. I think they're showing the signs of being on the early stages of redemption, possibly. It was a decent show. Moving on. The Jeff Keighley Variety Hour was a pretty hit or miss show. I feel like the things here were either so boring that I got up to pee, or I was smiling watching the thing. And speaking of Prince of Persia, that really was my main takeaway. The Prince of Persia gameplay trailer was my most hype moment of the entire showcase, which, I don't know what that says about me. I also thought Spider-Man 2 being at this showcase at all was kind of a waste of time, and was probably only done for some clicks so they could say Spider-Man 2 was at the showcase, because really what was shown at this showcase, other than literally just a graphic of the release date, it really does just back up the theory that the PlayStation showcase was originally going to be something completely different, because that was such a pointless break of 5 minutes for Insomniac to get up on stage. But Prince of Persia looks fucking sick. Mortal Kombat looks fucking sick. The new 2D Sonic looks fucking sick. Alan Wake 2 is basically just Resident Evil 9, and I mean, at this point, I'll take it. There were some really weird announcements, like the Toxic Commando thing. Like, you put John Carpenter's name as like the big hype John Carpenter's working on a game. This is a John Carpenter game, and then it's just Left 4 Dead, but worse, and with a fucking abysmal frame rate, by the way. I don't know what was going on with the Toxic Commando gameplay. That thing is going to run like complete ass. Also, the Twisted Metal show looks fucking awful. I'm just gonna throw that out there. It looks really bad. No amount of Will Arnett is gonna make me want to watch this. It looks terrible. I did find it kind of funny that Call of Duty paid for presence at this show, and they used that to promote the new season of Modern Warfare 2 instead of the game that is apparently coming out in like 4 or 5 months. Like, I just love how fucking dead Call of Duty is right now, and Activision absolutely deserves it. They destroyed this franchise, they destroyed their entire reputation, and it is hysterical to me that we know there's a new Call of Duty game coming out later this year, and Activision paid for Call of Duty time at Summer Games Fest, and they didn't even reveal the new game because they know how little people care about this franchise now. I kind of love it. Lies of P also looks pretty sweet. As a new Souls fanboy, I think Lies of P actually looks pretty sweet, and I'm hearing really good things about the demo, so that's good. Space Marine 2 looks pretty sweet. Nicolas Cage in Dead by Daylight was the weirdest thing ever, but fucking fine, I'm here for it. I don't play Dead by Daylight, but sure, I'll take the memes that are going to come out of this. And of course, the big announcement at the end of the show was Final Fantasy VII Remake 2. I forget the name of it, which, you know, if you're into that, you're into that. I'm sure you're excited. I just don't really care. No surprise, Xbox Showcase at number 1. They showed off a lot of good shit. They revealed a lot of good shit. The Gears of War fan in me is still annoyed that Microsoft seems to be completely ignoring this IP now. But from what Xbox showed off, I think Microsoft is really doing their best to redeem themselves, and I think they're doing it. Avowed is coming out next year, which I was not expecting at all. I thought Avowed was still at least another couple of years off. Same with Fable, which, you know, Fable not confirmed for next year, but the fact that it was at the showcase is interesting, you know, it was reassuring. And what they've shown of both games looks pretty decent. Hellblade 2 also looks significantly more interesting than the first one to me. I just was not a fan of the first Hellblade, but you know, it looks a little more interesting. And Payday 3 looks fucking baller. Persona, I feel the same way about Persona as I do about Final Fantasy. I'm not into these franchises, but if you are into these franchises, you were probably excited by these announcements, so good for you. And of course, the big focus of the showcase was Starfield, which is frankly looking excellent. It's looking way better than I thought it was going to. Obviously reserving final judgment until I get my hands on the thing, but this looks way better than I was expecting. I think anyone was expecting. At this rate, fucking take all the time you need. If this is what we're getting with extra time, by all means, I'm okay with games taking as long as they're taking if this is the end result. I have concerns about how the game is going to run because there's just some weird disparity between the console performance and the PC recommended specs. The console is going to be capped out at 30 frames across the board, but the PC recommended specs are only at like a 2070 or a 2080, so I'm just a little concerned about the technical performance of this game. I know Bethesda have a history of being fucking goofballs with their performance, but I'm not going to forgive that this time. I don't think anyone should. But from what we've seen of Starfield, it looks really, really, really good. And if this is the beginning of the Microsoft comeback tour and the Bethesda comeback tour, I am absolutely here for it. So that is my assessment of the big Summer Games showcases. I'm sure people will be upset about the things I have to say because that is always what happens around here, and you know what? I'm fine with it. Everyone express your opinions. I love your opinions. And in my opinion, you should hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because only 6% of my subscribers are following with the channel.